Board of Education meeting. And we need, call to order, we need a roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Here.
Mrs. Krieg.
Oh,
She
sorry.
is absent. Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Here.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Present.
And Mr. Pierson.
Here.
Mrs. Krieg will not be joining us. We will see her in January. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. If you're willing and able, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any correspondence, Mr. Riley?
I have none on my end.
Ms. McDermott?
And I have none on my end.
Would anyone else have any correspondence? Thank you. I'd like a motion to waive the reading and approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Report of the interim superintendent, Mr. Riley.
At this time, we do have the our annual performance. The members of the Geneva's Image Show Choir, under the direction of Michele Mather, will give us a short holiday performance.
She forgot her medication, and she staggered out the door into the snow. When we found her Christmas morning at the scene of the attack, she had footprints on her forehead and incriminating claws marks on her back. Grandma got ran over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as for me and Grandpa, we believe. Now the goose is on the table, and the pudding made of figs, and the blue and silver candles that would just have matched the hair in Grandma's wig. I warned all my friends and neighbors, better watch out for yourselves. They should never give a license to a man who drives a sleigh and plays with elves. Grandma got ran over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as to me and Grandpa, we believe. Grandma got ran over by a reindeer walking home from our house Christmas Eve. You can say there's no such thing as Santa, but as to me and Grandpa, we believe. But as to me and Grandpa, we believe. bells all sing to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong dong, that is our song, with joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they come, praising the sound, oh, how the down town in the town, get in the ring, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. On they send, on without end, their joyful tone to every home. Hark how the bells, sweet silver bells, all sing the same, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong dong, that is a song, with joyful ring, all caroling. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they come, praising the sound, oh, how the downtown in the town, get in the ring, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. On they send, on without end, their joyful tone to every home.
On without end, their joyful tones to every home.
Ding dong, ding dong. The snowman in the yard is frozen hard.
It's a sorry sight to see.
If he had a brain, he'd complain that he wishes he were me. Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight.
How I hate going out in the storm.
But if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be home. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight.
How I hate going out in the storm.
But if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be home. The fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbye. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Let us
Yeah, but that was only 5 years ago, Marty.
Yes, it was. Next year's our 5-year.
Too easy for all that.
Now we have a presentation. I believe Mrs. Dragon is coming up to talk about the Eagles taking flight presentation that they're trying to resurrect here at the high school. Hello.
Hello.
My name is Eileen Dragon. I am a science teacher here at the high school, and I would like to bring back international tours for students. We have done EF tours in the past. I have chaperoned 2 of the 3 EF tours. Both of my children went on 2 of the EF tours, and I feel that it is just one of those things that are very important for our students. The tour that I had chosen to go on would be for the summer of 2026, and it will be to Peru. And the reason I chose this was for cultural and ecological reasons. It does have the most diverse rainforest in the world. We would be visiting the microfloras. We will be visiting the different biomes, going up to Machu Picchu, which is Inca civilization. And I've been reading the reviews, and it is almost a 5-star review every single time. And it's about the culture, the Peruvian culture, and it's very impressive. And we've done EF tours in the past, and they are good tours. Do you have any questions?
Your daughter traveled across Europe right after graduation as well, correct?
She is living in Switzerland
Because
right now.
I remember I had a talk about dialectical French versus Quebecois and Northern French, and she was explaining to me the French that people speak in Sweden as a combination.
Mm-hmm.
That was extremely impressive that anyone could name that. I think it was at Grenoble Cellars.
Oh.
And
nice.
how long was she overseas?
She still is.
Still is.
Yes.
So yeah.
Because of what they've experienced here at Geneva, going on those tours, as soon as she went to college, the first thing that she said was she wanted a career where she was going to travel, and she wanted to go over to Europe. And one of the first classes that she took in the summer was going over to Hungary.
Okay.
And she studied over there over the summer, and then when she got her first job, she was asked to go to Switzerland, and she is living and working in Switzerland. She's been there for 2 years now.
Awesome.
And
so
home
direct
for
correlation
Christmas.
on success in the
Yes.
employment as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mrs. Dragon, you were involved in the 2020 trip. Do you remember that? Was that you?
It was,
I don't remember who
there
it
were
was.
3 trips. So there was one for Spain and France. The second trip was for Italy, and I believe the third trip was Costa Rica. I did not go to the Costa Rica one.
Oh, well, the 2020, it was, I think, Spain and Italy that we were slated to go.
Oh,
Like literally 7 days after we got shut down for COVID.
yes.
I think we got shut down on like a Friday the 13th. We were supposed to leave the following Friday. Anyway, I was just telling Mr. King today that EF was outstanding through that whole process.
Yes.
They held our hand while we tried to figure out how to reschedule, how not to reschedule, how to get our money back, all of that. So I just wanted to tell everybody that that company did really well by us at that time. And so I have a faith in them, so.
And the school is not responsible for any of this. EF is responsible.
yeah.
The students pay EF. They are liable for any of the transportation issues, all of that.
The price that's in here, the student and adult price, is that all encompassing, or is that?
Yes, that would be the plane, the food, any of the tours that they would be going on.
And this says lowest price, so it could be more than that?
Well, we're hoping, because I guess every new year they up it, and so she went back and got us this price, so that way when January comes, we will be locked in at that price.
Would you be able to send these electronically so we can blow them up and see them a little bit better also?
Absolutely. Well, that was the copy that she sent me, but I will see if I can get a larger copy of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just looks like that page is shrunk.
She did send it
It's
shrunk,
tiny.
yes.
Do we need a minimum number of students to sign up in order for this to be a go?
We would definitely like to have at least 12 students. That would be the minimum.
Okay.
But the more the merrier, but we would like to cap it off. When we went to, the first trip that we went on was the Spain and Italy, and we had 83 people.
Wow.
That was with chaperones. That was a lot.
It was a big group when we
And
were.
I don't know if I'm ready for that many.
What do you want to cap it at?
Pardon?
What do you want to cap it at?
I would like to see if we could get 30.
students or students and adults?
30 students, and then it would be for every 6 students, 1 chaperone. That would be a nice number.
Is the 1-to-6 ratio, is that a requirement or is that a hope?
That is a requirement
Okay.
Of
of
Geneva
EF.
schools or them?
EF.
Oh, okay.
So for every 6 students, they will send 1 chaperone.
My oldest went on the Barcelona trip and absolutely loved it.
It was
This is such a
wonderful.
cool opportunity.
I know, it's the
Yes.
best.
And I figured somebody would take it up after COVID, and I wasn't hearing anything, and I was in the works with EF just to see what they were doing, what kind of trips they were going on, and they kept returning the emails back to me, and then finally they reached out to me and they said, would you be interested? And I said, you know what, I would love to. So
are you thinking middle school too, or just high school?
to be honest with you, if we don't have the numbers, I would love to include the 8th graders coming up to the 9th grade, because it will be in 2026. If that's an option.
It's amazing. Everything about it's amazing. We literally cried when we couldn't go. I mean, you know.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Anything else? Thank you, Mrs. Dragon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of moving forward with the administrative reports, I'll go first this evening. Had a chance to, obviously, we just saw our Geneva's Image perform phenomenal concert. They are performing again with the high school groups tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. I had a chance last week to take in the middle school choir concert, and the 6th graders had a performance. I can't remember the name of it, but it was dealing with the hope of a school closure due to the weather.
Snow day.
Snow day.
Might have been called, I worked on snow day, so we were on the verge of it because that was the day that we got a lot of that slake effect snow that we really didn't think was going to come when the radar showed it in the morning, and then poof, there it was for about 6 hours. But they did get at least an hour early dismissal at the secondary level, about a 45-minute early dismissal at the secondary level, so I guess the 6th graders got a little bit of what they were looking for. So I'll take that. So kudos to the entire program. The band concert that was scheduled for that particular day has actually been rescheduled for January 14th. Due to that weather, and we'll get some more information out about that after the new year. Speaking of after the new year, we're going to continue our conversations on a multitude of topics, actually looking at least from an administrative perspective and a district perspective, the continuation of kind of redistricting conversations that we started here at board meetings. I've been in contact also with the group called, or the company we're under contract with. It's called Aptigee. They are the ones that design our website. And as anybody knows about our website, it's not very good. But apparently they have a multitude of platforms, a multitude of frameworks and templates that we can use, and we can redesign it, we can restructure it, rebrand it, whatever we need to do. So I've already been set up a meeting with them after the break. Last but not least, some mailings and maybe publications. Apparently at one point in time, there was a calendar that went out in this district. Had some staff members think that maybe that might be something to kind of look forward to. But I'm going to put out a survey following the winter break to family, kind of talking about a few of these items here and trying to start to solicit some feedback and some input on things that they would like to, for instance, see within a website. You know, what are some, maybe a site that they know of that they use at their child's school or somewhere else that they've looked at that looks like really pretty neat and would like to add maybe some of those concepts to ours. So I'm going to send out a survey on a few different things on that end. And then my hope is that when I get the results, we'll have a redistricting meeting for those that are interested on January 16th at 6 o'clock in the board office conference room. It has been posted in the newspaper if anybody would be interested in helping out on that committee or offering your feedback. It's been offered a couple times in the newspaper, and there has been 0 responses as of yet. But I do know that it's being talked out there in the community. So I'm going to need a little bit of insight and information and help from the families in our community along the way. So there'll be a question on the survey if they would be interested in participating in that. I'll certainly be looking for some feedback.
What time was that day?
6 o'clock p.m. on January 16th is where we're tentatively slated to go, weather permitting, of course.
Over at central office.
Central office. Just a few days after the Thanksgiving break, the third grade fall English language arts results were released. The state average on that first wave of fall results was 42%. Geneva came in at 41%, pretty much right on par with the rest of the state, I suppose. The principals have already been digging into the information, digging into the data, trying to figure out what areas they need to really work on it within their individual buildings, because each building is a little more unique. For instance, just as an example, over at GPS, Mrs. Berzanko states that 2/3 of the students really hadn't worked on typing skills earlier on in their career. So when they took the test, their writing scores weren't very high because they have to type on an online test. So that was an added stressor that they were talking to the kids about after the fact and talking to some of the teachers. So they're going to be working on that. Osterberg, they noticed that vocabulary was a challenge, so they're going to be working on some vocabulary skills to try to up that a certain part of the test. So they have some after-school programs they'll be looking at, some tutoring that's going on, some interventions that are in place. But each building kind of noticed something a little different from one another. So it'll be interesting to see how we address that and when we come back from the break. Senate Bill 29. The governor finally signed on December 9th House Bill 432. There were multiple components of that, but one of the significant components from a family perspective is it reduced the number of 72-hour notices that needed to go out. For the families that are in this district, you were pretty much getting an email every day from me since early, mid-November-ish. Well, lucky for you, that's not going to happen any longer. I know you're all sad about that. However, there will still be some notifications sent out for the following reasons. The activity is permitted under a judicial warrant or subpoena unless otherwise prohibited by state or federal law. The school district or the technology provider is notified or becomes aware that the device is missing or stolen, such as a student misplacing it at the middle school. The activity is necessary to prevent or respond to a threat of life or safety, and the access is limited to that purpose. So if our security system identifies a word that's triggered within the system when the student is working on a project or typing an email or whatnot, and the building administration is notified, that would be a warrant where we would not only send the letter out to the family, but the principals would also call. So for the last several weeks, every family was getting a 72-hour notice because anytime we accessed any type of record with a student, we were just sending one out. The principals, when they had some of these certain situations evolving, they were also sending out an additional letter. So from a district perspective, the number of letters that's going to go out is going to be reduced. Also, would like to recommend as we move forward into the new year that the art club at the high school student council, and the high school Spanish club be reinstated. These were supplementals that were eliminated when budgetary cuts occurred a handful of years ago. And speaking with Mr. King, some of the staff members, including Mr. Mansky, they know that they have the students that are expressing interest in going back into those clubs, and believe that they would be very good to bring back.
What was the list?
GHS Art Club, GHS Student Council, and GHS Spanish Club. In some cases,
GHS doesn't have a student council?
No, they do. In some of these cases, the
Nobody
staff
gets paid
members
to run it.
are doing it voluntarily on their own with some folks, but I think it's time to bring back those supplementals to kind of recognize the efforts that they've continued to tirelessly do over the time.
How much is that going to cost?
Mrs. Shelley McDermott and I will have a conversation about exactly how that will be looked.
Okay.
It's difficult to say because we don't know exactly who will fulfill those positions, even though we know who did it beforehand. We would have to go back, we would have to repost the positions, and then once we get all the names in, then we'll have a better idea of what the dollar amount would be.
Okay.
And we have students that are in those clubs now.
Yes. Students that are either in the club or they have expressed interest to press, like Mrs. Monahan said, I would love to do this. Last year when the high school did the mural in downtown, there was like 20 students that showed up. So there's a very good core group of students that would like to be just going and start doing these things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, does that then sort of finish up reinstating all the supplementals that were cut?
There are a handful or more that are still out there, but it's one of the other ones that we're looking at, and I want more information from Mr. King, could be I believe it was the old AV director position that was out that way. I'm still trying to learn exactly why that was eliminated, what that position entailed, some of the particulars. So before we go in to reinstate that, I just want to get a little bit more information before considering that. Mr. King has indicated that at this point in time, those, and so has Mr. Mansky, those would be the ones that they would recommend. That doesn't mean there's not more, but right now that's the start.
Right, good, thank you.
You're welcome. Calamity days and snow days, we'll be certainly had our fair share of snow here in Ashtabula County, and believe it or not, we're going to have a green Christmas. Would go figure with all that. We do, as I said in the November meeting, we'll make every decision to make a decision to families before 6 o'clock in the morning. We were somewhat fortunate or unfortunate that we were actually canceling school on that Thursday and Friday on Wednesday afternoon of that week. It was just, there was literally no place to place the snow, and they were dumping it into Lake Erie. So it kind of made those decisions very easy. Superintendents across the county were talking. I even spoke with the Madison superintendent. They were in the same boat. So we're always in constant contact with one another. Somebody's got a different weather app that we're all looking at radars and we're all checking some stuff out. So we do try to make those decisions. But even the other day when we had the lake effect snow, it was pretty much clear south of 90, but north of 90, as we all observed, we were getting pummeled for about 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. And we thought for sure we would get everybody in before all the snow started to fall. And then I looked outside at 8 o'clock and 7:45 and called Mr. Ola and said, hey, do you realize it's snowing? He said, just a little bit. I'm like, I can't see across the parking lot right now. So we got them in. The transportation department did a phenomenal job getting the students in, getting the students out. In fact, the roads were clear when we all left. So that was a good thing at the end of the day. But that lake effect is tough to predict. Recent snow and the impact on our buildings, the only true impact was that the middle school had some leaky roofs, especially in the library, that they put several trash cans and buckets out to kind of catch the water. We realized that apparently the gutters up on top had not been cleaned out appropriately or effectively enough. Once the guys went up, they cleaned out the gutters, they moved off some of the snow, all of the rain stopped coming from inside, and it's since has been not an issue whatsoever. So the guys did a great job in looking at a lot of that and trying to help off, make sure that we were up and running, everything was good. As a reminder, just on my end, finally to the community, the district offices are closed over the winter break. Offices will be closed the 24th and 25th of December, as well as January 1st. And winter break obviously runs from December 21st through January 5th, with classes hopefully returning on January 6th. On behalf of the administration and district, I'd like to wish everybody a very happy and healthy holiday season. That's my report, but I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Porcello, followed by Mr. Markajohn, followed by Mrs. Carnett for their updates on what's occurring district-wide, throughout the districts, I should say.
To get really close. All right, good evening. The first thing that I want to mention is the model policies and procedures. It's later on in the agenda for a vote. Hopefully you guys took some time to do some light reading and enjoyed everything special education. The IDEA, ORC, and Ohio Administrative Code require us to adopt model policies and procedures each year. There is an option for us to create our own that have to be approved by the Ohio Department of Education and Work, it's not what it's called, Department of Education and Workforce. The ones that they create themselves are pretty good. So these policies and procedures reflect the regulations that are put into place and then procedural standards for following through with them. They include things like free and appropriate public education, child find, confidentiality, completing evaluations, writing IEPs, what non-public schools are and what our, as a public school, what our requirements are in handling the students that are at the non-publics and so forth. There were model policies prior to the release of these ones. The new ones are pretty much exactly the same. A few verbiage changes based on changes to Ohio Revised Code. And in my update, I linked the changes to Ohio Revised Code that were reflected in those policies. Last Friday, the 13th, my lucky day, every intervention specialist in the district and speech therapists went to compliance training at ATAC that was put on by a state support team through a grant that they have with ATAC. Our secondary intervention specialists went in the morning, and our elementary went in the afternoon. I've spoken to multiple intervention specialists at each of those levels this week as I was in buildings, and it was positive across the board. All of them heard things they knew. All of them heard new things that were good things for them to hear and learn. They brought a couple questions to me. They brought a couple to Pam. It was a really good experience, for sure, and I'm glad that we had that opportunity. Coming up in January and the beginning of February, all of our elementary and middle school intervention, not all of them, 15 of our elementary and middle school intervention specialists will be attending a foundations training at the elementary level, foundations level 1, 2, and 3. And at the middle school, Just Words training. That's a tier 2, tier 3 intervention program for reading that we're hoping to be using in our resource rooms. So I'm really excited about that opportunity for them as well, to get to use the materials that we have around the district and improve our students' reading skills.
So of the 54 pages, they gave you 4 pages of changes?
Yes. Okay. And not all of those changes to Ohio Revised Code are things that necessarily go into the model policies and procedures, but they're things that were considered while they were changing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. Mr. Market, John?
Excuse me.
Brave man wearing that brown sweater.
He's a hopeless romantic.
I believe
Next year, there's always next year.
there's always next year. It's a special time at the elementary schools this time of year, and we're very lucky to get a chance to have our students experience such wonderful things that many of the members of our community and many of the people that work for the schools are able to go ahead and put on for our students. And I know that they are extremely appreciative of everything that's going on. But instead of having like 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, although we enjoyed the snow days, we had to squeeze everything into 2 weeks. So all of the staff has been working hard to get everything in for the kids. And like I said, they've been very appreciative. Each one of the elementary schools had a Santa shop where students could go ahead and purchase items for family members, teachers, maybe a principal, I don't know. But those were successful at every one of the buildings, and it's a special time for our students to get a chance to be able to get gifts for their loved ones. The Christmas program was once again wonderful. Mrs. Stowell was able to get these Christmas programs in at each one of the building, with most of the buildings only having one chance to practice it together. And really the students were flawless. Mrs. Stowell does an amazing job all the time. And this year was, even with the restricted amount of time that she had to work with them, was still an amazing performance. The elementaries participated in the community Christmas card, I believe with the secondary level as well, and we had students participate in that to wear a crazy hat and donate $1 towards the community Christmas card. The special thank you to the Geneva choir and GIs that came out to perform at each one of the elementary buildings earlier this week on December 16th. Our students absolutely love to see the older kids perform, and they're just in awe to see them, and then to hear the students say that they were from Austinburg, or they were from Cork, or they were from GPS, and now they're up there, and encourage the students to get involved in that is a really positive experience. Also, a special thank you to our cafeteria for the Lucky Tray winners that we've had for our students. And I think there's a very special presentation going on in all the cafeterias tomorrow. Maybe Santa and Mrs. Claus will be stopping by to give some special presentations to some of our students. So I know everyone's really looking forward to that tomorrow in the cafeteria. Besides that, at Ostenburg, we had a program, Gym Basketball Jones, that came out that was a very positive assembly that AESA paid for and had them come in. The students and the teachers were dancing during this, and like I said, it was a very positive message that was given. That was a great program. And nobody likes inside recess, but we did have a visit last week during inside recess of Santa and Mrs. Claus, who talked to our students in our library, and it was amazing. It was the first inside recess that was like completely quiet as they just listened to stories that were given. So all in all, it has been an extremely positive time at the elementaries, and we're grateful for the kids that we have and the families that do so much to make it a special time of the year.
Thanks, Tony. I have it on good authority Santa will be visiting the schools tomorrow.
Weather permitting?
Weather permitting.
Mrs. Carnett.
Good evening. Not quite so intimidating here as it was up there on the stage for the choir concert. As I expressed before, I'm not a public speaker, but I will do my best. I have some reports from both the middle school and the high school. We had a Patriots Pen writing essay competition, and that was involving all of our English department as well as some of the social studies departments. We had 75 students who submitted essays, and there were a total of over 5,000 essays submitted across the area, and we got first, second, and third place at the middle school.
Nice.
Wow. So we had a 6th grader, 7th grader, and an 8th grader who placed.
That's great.
We had, let me get the names right here. So we had Whitley Rustick, who was our first place winner, Benjamin Burr was our second place winner, and Dominic Webb was third place. So they won a certificate, a medal, and a monetary award. And those essays will then move on to the next level of the competition. There are 4 additional levels to the competition. So the maximum winnings in the national competition would be a $5,000 scholarship. So that's very exciting. So I'm hoping to hear how they do in the next round. We also had, we have a career day and a reality day. This is the first time that the middle school has put together both of those opportunities in one major career day. And that has been postponed due to the lovely snow. We are going to do that in May, but we have a lot of people volunteering for that from the community. We have, at last count, I think 60 volunteers for that event. So it'll be a great time for students to explore different careers. 6th, 7th, and 8th graders will all be involved at the same time, and we will have reality day embedded into that program throughout the day. So that'll be exciting to see once they come back. We had an assembly here and at the middle school and at the high school. Michael DeLeon, who is a nationally recognized speaker who educates parents and students on the dangers of substance abuse. And thanks to Officer Cooper and his efforts to get this gentleman here, it was phenomenal. The students were glued to this gentleman. He had a great message for these students. He offered a lot of educational opportunities for them as far as what vaping and what all these different substances do, how they're marketed to students, and how they're trying to get students to become dependent upon these things. He himself has had a very rough road in his past, has been involved with substance abuse and other issues with the law, and so he has come out, and his goal is to help others understand how dangerous it can be and what they can do to stop.
He made a big impact.
Yes.
That's what they were talking about at dinner. So,
Yeah,
Really
my kids
good.
have both talked about it today, too.
Yes,
Good.
it was definitely a very worthwhile assembly. I know here at the high school it was also very well received. We also have some holiday festivities, decorating hallway contest. I know I saw Mr. Riley there, and Ms. Craig was also there, taking a look at some of the decorations. We have things dangling from every space in every hallway over there, so kids are getting very excited about that. We have reindeer games coming up, which was a new thing to me coming into Geneva, but it has, I guess, a long-standing, very popular event where kids go into crazy events and they have teams and compete against, bless you, compete against one another. And so last year it was really loud, and I think it'll be even louder this year because the kids are really gearing up for it. So. Let's see, what else do we have here? So we had at the high school, they had their first premiere of Eagles Got Talent, so they had their first ever talent show. Michael says that they had a great time. Comedians, singers, musicians, bands performed, donations received from the game support the NHS and the Student Council's Wrap Your Christmas Fund. They also had recognition for their athletes, so we had Hayden Demir and Bryce Pete for winning County Offense and Defensive Players of the Year, recognized for excellence in the Eagles football head coach, Don Shimsky. Shimsky, thank you. We have a Shemansky at the middle school. Shimsky, yes. And Luke Barbo for also winning the Robert L. Weiss Memorial Scholarship. So they had a great celebration here. They also had the students participate in the SMASH program. I'd have to get some more information from him about, but the students strive to save lives by educating fellow students on the dangers of impaired driving, distracted driving, speeding, failure to wear your seatbelt through programs they created and subsequently presented to their respective high schools. GHS participants were, there were 4 different participants in that program for that day. Sorry about that. We also had the OMEA Honors Band. They went to Stanbaugh on November 22nd. They were involved in lots of different opportunities to learn and take part in different musical programs, learning about different pieces of performance with different regions, along with their instrumental music teachers who also went to professional development sessions and learned about improving instrumental music education. And I think that's it, other than lots of pictures. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah.
Yes. Moving on with the agenda, and close for review are the following new, revised, or replacement policies for board adoption.
This is the first reading, correct?
Yes, this is the first reading. As a reminder, if there is a strike through, that means it's being replaced or rejected by another policy that is in there.
Anything we have to do on it? Let's just notice that it's the first reading, right?
Correct, at this point in time.
Thank you.
So is 173 going into 165 then? Is that what's happening?
Let me check my manual here. 173. 0173?
Yep. 0173, board office. Or is it going in 163, 0163, presiding officer?
The language is now in 0152.
0152, officers. Okay.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. According to Mr. Holland, there are more board policies than we're used to. Mr. Holland, he is the Neola rep. I guess they have a new director at Neola. They tried something different by asking the consultants to give some feedback into which policies they thought they needed to update. And when all of the policies started coming in, they realized it was overwhelming and too many, so they're going to kind of shrink it down moving forward, going back to what they typically do, which is usually 25 or 23 as opposed to...
Yeah, this seems like a lot
as
more
opposed
than
to 45, I think, is in there, 44. So they will make that adjustment in the spring. There will be another batch, usually February, March.
That's
Thank you.
quarterly, right?
A couple
They do
times a year,
that?
couple times a year.
Oh, a couple times a year, okay. So we have to review them and be ready to discuss next time, correct?
Correct.
All right.
The interim superintendent recommends that the board approve the curriculum recommendations from SESIC for 2024-25 as presented in the attached summary.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
So is this preschool and the art curriculum?
Yes, the
So it's both of them?
the preschool is the creative curriculum, and the art curriculum is the art of education. And the art curriculum is completely online.
Is that how we'll review it when the time comes for that? Like we did with the creative curriculum?
It was up for public review. We had it in the board conference room. The art teachers kind of created a short little slideshow presentation. And if somebody came in, we would just click through it. Nobody came in to my knowledge, but we had a couple people come in and look at the elementary, or not the elementary, the preschool curriculum.
Oh, okay.
And this is for 24, 25?
This
will start after.
This will start after we would place the
Second
order.
semester.
We would place the order. It would start the second semester. With the preschool curriculum, it is I believe we garnered a 5-year license with it, and the professional development would happen for the preschool staff members during our upcoming PD day in the end of January. So they will hit the ground running with this new curriculum.
Creative curriculum has a tremendous amount of things online. Resources online are seemingly endless for them.
So how many people were involved in selecting these curriculums?
So from the art curriculum, obviously we have the art department, so that would be, I think there's about 5 teachers that were involved in researching the curriculums and then presenting it to SESIC. From preschool curriculum, I believe they initially started, Mr. Marker, John, you helped out with that, but I believe they had about 6 or 7, 5 or 6 that kind of reviewed them all. The curriculums have to be, there's a step up to quality curriculums, a list from that's out there, and there's a Department of Education and Workforce curriculum. You have to have one that's on one of those, but when they reviewed all of them, there was only 5 that were on both. So in order to be in compliance, you kind of had to select one of those 5. So they researched all those 5 and came up with this creative curriculum for the preschool. So they ran it through both the art and the preschool, ran it through the SESIC's developed rubric. It came out with very high marks. They presented it to SESIC, and they spoke very highly of it during their presentation.
So these are the curriculums that we want?
Yes, these are the curriculums that we want.
Okay.
Anything else? What was your motion that you moved, Jamie? Did you say a motion?
And Brock
You just said
seconded.
moved, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Brock seconded.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
And Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
The interim superintendent recommends approval of the special education model policies and procedures.
Can I get a
So
motion?
moved.
Thank you, Brian.
Second.
Any discussion about it?
And we had the model policies in place before these. These are replacing the previous model policies?
Correct.
Okay.
But not with any significant content, right, Kelly? It's just verbiage and stuff. There's no real changes, no
Minimal.
substantive
Minimal changes.
changes, yeah.
Looks like most of it's amenable to state law that's changed over the past year.
Okay, anything else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
The interim superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 2024-2025 contract year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes. Report of the treasurer, please, Ms. McDermott.
Okay, I just want to recognize Mrs. Curtis again. Last meeting, she did come and present the board and filled out all the required paperwork for a donation at a value of $60 for pictorial Bibles, one for each school, and they are age appropriate for each school.
Have they been put in the libraries?
They were sent to the buildings yesterday in anticipation of something. If we do vote in favor of them, they'll put them in the libraries tomorrow.
Oh, right, okay, thank you.
And then with that also, you have the treasurer's report. I also gave you the new format. So the new format today includes the updated five-year forecast. I've already lost mine, I apologize.
Right here. This one?
What did I do with my copy? Thank you. And so what this does, there's a few sections to this. This will now be included probably in the front of your financial package going forward. So what this does is, at first, it will compare year-to-date as of the end of November compared to last year-to-date at the end of November. And then it's going to kind of compare where we're at the end of, let's just say, November compared to what the forecast is based upon that. So it's kind of a neat tool that works with the five-year forecast. Just to summarize the front page, if we're looking at the forecast, now I know we did the forecast at the beginning of November, and this is only at the end of November, but we're within $3,900 of the forecast. Revenue's a little bit lower, whereas expenditures are a little bit higher or lower. So, but again, right now, $4,000 isn't bad on a nice budget. So, this will be, again, part of the packet. Also, just so you know, Red Tree has, which again is going to be is the firm that's going to overtake the investing, since I don't feel that I am capable of doing how Mr. Lilly did it. So they have taken over the investments for Piper Sandler at the current time. There are 3 securities left over at Multiple Bank Securities, which will get signed over before Christmas break. And then they have also taken the Huntington ones. So going forward, that investment report that listed every single investment, that's going to change. So probably the last one you'll have of that will be at the end of December, because we'll have part of the month where those investments were still in place, but all of them have been transferred over to Red Tree. So again, we have Red Tree now, and we will have Star Bank that has the higher interest rate of 5% at the current time. So I know in the lunch report, I think Michelle might have made a note right now, it's a little bit low. We did receive our payment for November or for October on December 2nd. So that is missing. I think she might have made a note in the report just stating that, right now it looks like we have a low fund balance, that maybe, looking at it, that the CEP, what it's doing to our fund balance. But again, we did receive the funds in December. So you'll notice probably a duplicate deposits in December. So, do you have any questions?
You want a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, or comments? Thank you for this. This is beautiful.
Isn't that nice? It's easy. It's kind of, a little more interesting to read. Kind of shows where our variances are. Year-to-date totals as compared to last year, obviously, you can assume that a lot of it will be an increase in salaries and benefits, because as we know, the CBA does tell us how we are going to increase our salaries. And with salaries, up goes benefits. So.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
The treasurer recommends approval for the athletic department to repurpose 20 football helmets that are no longer of any use to the district. They will be used to make trophies / lamps and et cetera out of, and used as gifts for fundraisers for the athletic boosters or the athletic departments.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion about that? What does repurposing mean? Throwing it away? What do they do?
No, so
No,
they're
they're
gonna actually
gonna
take
use
the
them to
football
make
helmet
things.
And fix it?
and turn it into something of a use. You know.
Oh,
They're gonna break
They're
it
not
even
fix the
more.
helmet, They're gonna make.
They're not gonna
use
fix
the
it,
oh, they're
helmet
gonna
to do
make other
something
stuff
They're gonna make
out of
other
it.
things out of
I
it.
read it wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's kind of like we're
Somebody's
making a donation so that it can be
Yes.
used, but again, those funds will be used to, for the district.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cybulski,
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
And Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Okay, the last item I have is the treasurer recommends approval of the enclosed resolution. As we talked about at the last meeting, you know, in going forward to, you know, trying to construct a stadium, the first step would be to contract with an architect to get the preliminary drawings so we can get a cost, so we can start to plan from getting that original cost. So we did go with GPD Group. GPD is also the architect who did the board office. So they are very familiar with our setting and our place. So they have, again, submitted their proposal. If the proposal is below $50,000, all we need is their statement of qualifications. I think Amy did include that in the board packet. So we do have a quote from them. Again, it'll be between $38,000 and $44,000. We did meet with both Mr. King and Ms. Crossley about the project. They were given the drawings that had been done that were presented last May to you. So they're going to try to work with those. And again, this is not a final of this is what we're doing, and GPD is not necessarily the architect that we would contract with. But again, this is just something so we can go ahead and get this cost and get some ideas of how we want this done. I know they had talked about, you know, in looking at these drawings is cutting into the hill and what that would amount to and the cost of cutting into the hill if we, you know, of the placement of the original drawing. So they may come up with some different ideas of, you know, a more cost-effective manner. We also kind of discussed the way that things were presented about having maybe a standalone on the visitor side and a standalone on the home side. You know, and it was discussed about the cost of having multiple standalones instead of combining them all. So, you know, again, I think they're going to present a few things, and so we can move forward.
Looks like they've done a lot of complexes.
Yes. So it was kind of, you know, neat to have, you know, their statement of qualifications that did, you know, lay out all that.
So how long until we have a presentation from them, or?
I think it's only, what did it say?
I didn't see it.
Approximately 45 days. We anticipate the master discovery master plan, which is the most of it, is 45 days from authorization.
Oh, okay.
So after tomorrow.
So from today, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
Shelley, do they help at all in talking about financing or fundraising or any of?
I'm not sure, but if not, you know, again, with all the local projects, you know, at least in the Ohio area, that I'm sure that we can reach out to other athletic departments to see how, you know, their funds were raised to finance it, their financing options.
When we did central office with them, we already had that money from a previous revenue stream. So that was not part of the discussion. Do you know what I mean? So if it is going to be, then we'll have to figure out if they can help us with that or not. We worked with them before, but we don't have any experience on the financial end with them.
Yeah, I didn't know if they had any experience creatively.
I don't think so.
Coming up with
Yeah, I don't
ideas.
know.
I don't think that's their wheelhouse.
Okay.
But again, there are multiple, avenues that we can, multiple contacts in here of these facilities that have been more recently built, so.
So in 45 days, we get their
Cost estimate.
materials,
Right.
whatever.
And
What'd
in
you call
the
it, Jen?
past.
Their estimate.
Their
Their
estimate,
estimate,
right.
right.
And in the past, I also dealt with them at my previous district, where they actually will put together some kind of walkthrough model.
Yeah.
If it's digital. So it's very, they're very good at this process, so.
So that'll be the February meeting, probably.
Could be, yes.
So
If it's
then
late
what's the
enough.
next step after that? Have we got that far ahead? After we have this architecture, drawing,
Right,
an
because then
estimate.
even if there's an estimate and we say, okay, that may be too much to even start to break down and figure out how we're gonna fund it, and things that we can change from, what was originally requested, because again, we gave the original request list. And so they'll give us options on, where we can cut costs, where we can improve,
Okay.
so,
So we gave them our wish list, essentially.
we did.
If we could have whatever we want, this is what we want.
I think it was the original wish list that was presented in May,
Okay.
when there was a committee that had gotten together to talk
Okay.
about,
Right, then we can whittle it down from there if we need to.
if we need to, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I do need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Why am I always first tonight? Oh, because Mrs. Krieg is in here. Legislative report, please, Mr. Pierson.
I don't have anything too substantial here because the lame duck session went horrifically. It's still going on, and they're still trying to mill through the details. I will say the two that are most substantial for us, actually, Mr. Riley already touched upon it, is SB 29, HB 432. The 72-hour notices now are much more substantially important things that parents should know about, instead of just getting kind of a throw-all letter in the mail that says, hey, someone accessed your kid's mail, or information or grades. One of those three things. Have a nice Wednesday. So that's nice to see that you're not having to send all those, because that was a ridiculous use of your time.
Yeah.
The other thing that I put on here that is interesting is some of the school funding and SB 295 has been making its way across the state. Very interesting talk about closing certain districts and having others absorb them. Well, I don't think that Geneva would be at risk of closing, according to SB 295. There are school districts around us that might, and this would force us to absorb them potentially. So I am watching those two specific pieces of legislation. If any updates to those specifically occur, I'll do an update on those fronts. Other than that, there's a slew of legislation that is getting things added and removed before January hits and new politicians take office. So I'm sure that January will be pretty packed. But as of now, I think that 29, SB 29, SB 295, and how it's affected by HB 32 are really the ones we're most seized on right now.
Thank you, sir. ATEC, Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes, the holiday dinner was last week. Unfortunately, because of the weather, attendance was down, but there were 150 people in attendance, as well as career night attendance was down. There was a little over 50 families. The construction project is on track and scheduled to open the academies for the next school year. So,
Cool.
Good. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Now it's time for public comments. Public comment section will be 30 minutes in length, maximum. Each speaker will get 5 minutes to speak on their topic. Please announce your name and address for the record before you speak. And I think that's it. Would anyone like to talk to us? Moving on. Thank you.
The interim superintendent recommends approval of the enclosed resolution of the board's disciplinary action against teacher Victoria Vleek.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Did she come? Okay. Any discussion about it? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Pierson?
I haven't seen any, so I'm going to abstain.
Was that in our board packet?
I didn't see it in a board packet. I apologize, or else I
Should have been the
would.
resolution was in the board packet.
Yeah.
I think it's in the
I think so.
informational.
I'm not saying that it wasn't my fault that I omitted it. I'm
There's a
just saying I don't feel
resolution.
confident to vote on it if I haven't read it.
Understood. Is that where you are too, Mrs.
I am.
Cybulski?
I don't remember seeing it.
Well, with only two of us, that's not going to pass, correct?
It's not an informational? It's supposed to be the last page.
I do have a copy here, but.
I have mine as well.
Do you want the hard copy? Do you want me to
Yeah,
read it?
if I could read it before I
Would you like me to
vote.
read it?
Yeah,
Or do you want to read it?
I'll read it. Yeah.
Beth, here's.
Oh, thank you.
Would you like to table this till later in the agenda?
Oh, yes.
I think it's not the last thing. I'm sorry.
It's not the last thing.
Yeah, sure.
So I need a motion to table it until later in the agenda?
So moved. Or do we need to add a
No.
motion to table it?
No. Shelley? Can we add a motion to table it, or?
Tabling as an action we can just take. We don't have to modify the agenda is what I'm asking, Shelley. I'm sorry. It's the gray space.
I'm trying to think of, we're going to amend the agenda, so I guess we need a motion because we're going to move it to the end. Is that what you're
Do you want to do
planning?
that, or you're just taking that now?
Why don't we just take,
Let's just take some time now, instead of doing all that. Time for the band concert?
Probably 7 o'clock. That's what it was initially scheduled for.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. I've finished reading it if you have.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Mrs.
Now, I'm sorry, any more discussion about it? Any questions or concerns about it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Shelley.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes,
And Mrs. Ortiz.
Yes.
Mr. Pierson.
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski.
Yes.
thank you all. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Now I lost where I apologize.
Board member
I
reports.
lost my board member reports. Does anyone have anything to share? Oh, good, I do. I've been a bunch of places. The choir concert, the middle school choir concert that Mr. Riley mentioned. I just want to shout out again to Mrs. Mather. It was outstanding. It was middle school kids singing with voices changing and terrible sounding, and it was outstanding. They sounded amazing. And she has this beautiful way of sneaking music theory in to a cute song, right? I think it was the Snow Day song. Like every eight bars, there was a key change. And so the kids had to readjust to a new pitch, which is the most difficult thing about singing as your instrument. You can't just hit a button and hope that the right sound comes out. You have to do it out of your throat. And she did an amazing job. They did kazoos, which was hilarious. Quick story, when I was in band camp, Mr. Carroll, our director, said he would play a certain song if the parents would learn how to do it on kazoos, and none of them could figure out you had to hum. They were trying to blow into the kazoo and not making any progress, so we didn't do the song. Anyway, kazoos were hilarious. The other thing I loved was the show choir. So she put together a huge, like 25 kids, show choir in the middle school, and it's a great precursor for the Geneva's Image that we just saw. Get the kids interested in doing that, you know, moving with the music and dancing and coordinating in that. Because it's a whole nother level of performance art, and it was just a wonderfully done concert. She spoke about etiquette, and some of the crowd got a little bit unruly, and in her firm but polite way, she said, "Everyone, I'm teaching the students about concert etiquette. This isn't a rock concert where you just scream and bang your head. It's a concert where there are rules, societal rules to follow," and she reminded the audience to please do that because she's teaching the middle schoolers the importance of that. And so I just wanted to do a shout out for her. I spoke to Michael King the other day about this cool screen thing in the hallway. I don't even know what it's called, smart board
Smart
thing.
board, interactive board, sure.
And it's gonna have our yearbooks on it and all this cool stuff. And it was at no cost to the taxpayers. And it's a wonderful little gadget if you wanna go check it out, it's right out there. A quick shout out to Lakeside. We've reached out to them, all of us at all different levels, making sure that they're okay and they have what they need with their collapse of their roof and everything. So I wanted to publicly do that we are thinking of them and we are supporting them in what they need. And I want to shout out to Miss Anna Brown, our band director, who took the pep band / jazz band to the girls' basketball game and played for the women, and I think that's outstanding. I don't know who to actually give credit for, I don't know whose idea it was, but she did it, and I think that's amazing. So that's all I have. Anybody else have anything for board reports? Okay. Now, the board will need to determine a date, time, and place for the 2025 organizational meeting. A president pro tempore for the organizational meeting will need to be appointed. So we did that yesterday. We set our organizational meeting at January 7th.
Tuesday, January 7th.
Tuesday, January 7th at 7:30. So that will be our organizational meeting. We traditionally have it in central office, so is that where we want to do that? Over in our
Yes.
good board conference room over there?
We could have the board conference room.
Board conference room. You're welcome to join us, and at that time, we will set all of the future dates for next year's, for 2025's meetings. So we need a motion for our president pro tem. Or a nomination, I guess. Really? Nobody wants to run the January meeting?
I nominate Jamie Ortiz.
Second? Why is it so quiet in here? Second, I'll second. Any discussion about Jamie being President Pro Tem? At that meeting, we also elect our president then for the rest of the year. So, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
I'm supposed to abstain, right? Or am I
You
supposed to?
can't vote for yourself, I don't think.
Correct.
Okay, abstain.
Correct, abstain.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes. Good, so Mrs. Ortiz will run our January meeting, and we'll go from there. Any other business for the good of the order? I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on adjourning? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pierson?
Yes.
Mrs. Cybulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Thank you all, we're adjourned.